Thank you, Teresa. This is the Thursday morning meeting of the House Appropriations Committee, and I just looked down and realized it's September 3rd. I don't know if I even realized we were in September. Time is certainly flying by. But we are now streaming live on YouTube, so this is the official start of our committee meeting, and we have a lot on our agenda today. So we're going to move first to Chip. You have a bill on the that we will be bringing to the floor, and we have Mike O'Grady here to walk us through those final changes. And I know that there was some work last night done on that long piece of language at the end that I think that we've been able to considerably shorten and do what our committee was hoping, Mike. That's what I am hoping you're going to present to us. And Chip has been reading for all of our final changes and has been getting those to Mike, and they should be reflected. We also have Susanna Davis. So Susanna, if you wish to weigh in at any point, please just break in and let me know. So let's pop up this language and walk through the stimulus equity bill that we have been working on. Thank you, Mike, for your work. You're
welcome.
So late.
Can we get that?
Do you want me to just walk through changes, or do you want a full walkthrough?
We've walked through this bill probably 5 times now. So I think the highlights of the changes, but let's highlight the dates and we can go through it, but really highlight the changes.
Sure. And I do have a date question for you.
Okay.
And I'll page 3.
So there's no changes on page 1, is that correct?
No changes on page 1 or 2, or the
Okay.
changes that have been made you accepted when Becky walked through it with you.
Thank you.
Line 6, you'll see that on or before November 15th, the Agency of Administration, instead of the Agency of Human Services, shall establish the program to award direct relief grant payments to eligible adults and eligible children. You wanted on page 3, line 12, to use the past tense that they were ineligible to receive an economic impact payment. And then you use the lowest income threshold from the CARES Act as your income threshold. The $99,000 is for a single person with no children filing, and the $198 is for a joint filing with no children. That is the lowest income threshold in the CARES Act economic impact payment section. It can go up depending on how many children you have, what your income is, and the 5% reduction under that. So that's a little complicated, but this is the lowest threshold. Should I move on?
I think you should. We've talked about that section. And
Okay.
let the hand come up. Let's continue.
Page 3, line 20, you wanted it to be clear that the award is going to be issued as a check by the state of Vermont. So each award issued under the section shall be issued as a direct payment from the state of Vermont.
Okay.
Any questions?
We've had a long conversation about the importance of trust building. Okay. So
Okay.
page 4.
On page 4, you have that all applications for a payment under the section shall be submitted on or before March 1, 2021.
That's the correct date that we agreed upon yesterday. Yes.
All right.
I'm not
Going
seeing any
page
hands.
4, lines 4 through 7. You changed it from Agency of Human Services to Agency of Administration. You wanted the Agency of Administration to consult with the Executive Director of Racial Equity and the Agency of Human Services. So that change has been made on page 4, lines 4 through 5. Page 4, line 7, it had previously said as needed. And you wanted that to be struck, may partner with public or private entities as needed to conduct outreach, and you wanted the as needed to be struck.
We've discussed all of those pieces, and we see that both of those are put in there, both the AHS and the
Executive Director.
Yep, the new exact, thank you. And now
Okay,
let's move to the report.
You can move to page 6. The first report, subdivision G1 on line 2, is that report to the joint fiscal at the November meeting regarding how the agency of administration or its contractors will make payments under the program, including how payments will be dispersed to applicants who lack banking services or a mailing address. Moving down, page 6, line 7, this is the date issue. Remember that the application deadline is now March 1st, 2021, but you have the report to the General Assembly coming back on April 30th with the summary of payments, any challenges, and a description of the results or success. I just wanted to know if that's really all applications may not be in by the time that the report is developed.
No, they'll be in by the.
They will be in.
Well, they may not be paid out yet. Basically.
Yes. Yeah.
That's okay, as long as they're in, as long as they're in. Okay.
Okay. All right. Then on section 2, this is the appropriation. As the chair referenced, there was a long section amending a previous appropriation from 2018. That has been struck. And what is now in is $5 million is available in fiscal year 2021 to the agency of administration for payments under the program. Of the funds available, $2 million shall be appropriated from the general fund. And then notwithstanding that 2018 appropriation, which was the long section that was amended yesterday, $3 million of the funds appropriated from the tobacco litigation fund to judiciary to address adjudication of CHIN's cases shall be transferred to the agency of administration. Then you see that the agency may use up to $50,000 of those funds for the administration of the program. And then if the funds available to the agency of administration under the section have not been awarded on or before June 30th, 2021, any remaining funds shall revert to the tobacco litigation fund for use by the judiciary in fiscal year 2022 to address adjudication of CHIN's cases consistent with that 2018 appropriation.
Thank you, Mike. Teresa, could you go back to the bottom of page 6, please? Right there. For the administration and payment of grants pursuant to the Coronavirus Relief Assistance Program. Why, I just need clarification and I'm not following. Why would we mention the CRF if we're not using any of that money in the appropriation piece?
The name of this program is the Coronavirus Relief Assistance Program for Immigrants.
That's our program. Okay, that's ours.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with the federal CRF. Thank you. I didn't read to the end. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for the clarification.
Chip did note the very interesting acronym.
Oh, no.
Oh, I did not. I can change that.
I think we need to change that. I just think that I believe we should change that.
Sure.
We have Vermont, we had like the Vermont Relief Assistance Program or something.
The VTRAP.
Yeah.
Just change the words relief and assistance. Swap them.
Do you need it to say program? It could say coronavirus. Well, program is used throughout.
Just say coronavirus assistance relief program. Maybe not.
I want to read this, Nolan. I just in there.
Nolan?
Why don't you just get rid of relief? Why don't you just say coronavirus assistance program for immigrants?
Well, you could also, I can't raise my hand, I'm using my iPad.
Nolan, go ahead.
So the administration had, and Susanna Davis had kept referring it to as like the coronavirus, what do they call it? The economic stimulus equity payment. So you could call it something like the, coronavirus equity stimulus coronavirus economic stimulus equity payment. So it'd be like CREP.
Why
you get
don't
rid
we,
of-
I think we should, can we switch that back out? Say the name of that again, please, Nolan.
So you could call it the economic stimulus equity payment program. It'd be like ERAP or ERAP, or you could put the coronavirus in front of it and be like CREP.
Yeah, I
Oh,
really
Susanna just sent the
like
letter.
equity program because I think that's the message that we're driving is equity. And so I really like the equity piece in there. I think it's a
Yes.
better title reflecting our what we're trying to accomplish here, the equity of this.
Do
Yeah,
you see
ESEP.
Susanna's suggestion,
Yeah.
economic stimulus equity from Susanna in the chat?
Didn't see the chat. Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, which is what was basically, I was
equity.
just saying it from her because that was
Yeah,
what she'd been calling it. You can call it
Yeah.
ESEP.
Okay, so
Okay,
quickly so that we don't end up where we were yesterday with an hour discussion on one date. Let's come up quickly with a name, a title for this program. We can either call it the Economic Stimulus Equity Program, or Nolan, you had one more word to put in there. What was
You
your?
could call it the coronavirus equity stimulus, the coronavirus economic stimulus equity program. So you just add, you could call it the economic stimulus equity program, or you can put the coronavirus in front of that too.
I would recommend just putting coronavirus in front of it because that is what is, that is the driver of this program, Coronavirus Economic Stimulus Equity Program. Mark?
I was just thinking it might be helpful to put the name Vermont in it so that we distinguish this from the federal program and people don't think something else.
So we would
It's our
have,
own program. It's not a federal program.
I think that's an excellent point. So how does the committee feel about Vermont Coronavirus Economic Stimulus Equity Program? There,
Oops.
Nolan wrote it out.
Oh, I wrote
Are
it
we-
wrong.
From how?
I put economic equity. It should be economic stimulus equity. I'll rewrite it.
Okay.
I got it. Vermont Coronavirus Economic Stimulus Equity Program.
Yes.
It sounds like a title made up by a group of people.
Exactly.
Right.
But it accomplishes what our mission is. And so my question is, Mike O'Grady needs to go back now and put this title throughout. First, can we have a full screen, Teresa? If we all agree upon the Vermont Coronavirus Economic Stimulus Equity Program, can I see a wave of, a raise of hands, please? Okay, and those opposed, if I could have a verbal no. All right, thank you. And my question is, Mike needs to go back and fix the title throughout the bill. Are we comfortable taking a vote on this bill and just having the title of it changed? Are committee members good with that? If you are, could I have just a hand up?
I'm good.
Okay, so my question is now we have the bill in front of us with only the title being changed. Are we ready to take a vote on this bill? And are there any final questions or concerns for committee members, for Susanna or for legislative council or joint fiscal? I am not seeing any blue hands. And so I am wondering if a member would like to offer,
Madam Chair, I'd love to make a motion if you're,
you'd offer the motion. Thank you, Diane.
so I'd like to make a motion that we report favorably on the House Appropriations Committee bill, the Vermont Coronavirus Economic Stimulus Equity Program.
We have a motion on the floor by Representative Lanford. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Bob. The motion's been made and seconded. Is there any final discussion or questions or comments from? If not, I would ask that the clerk please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Conquest,
Yes.
Representative Fagan,
Yes.
Representative Feltus,
Yes.
Representative Helm,
Yes.
Representative Hooper,
Yes.
Representative Jessup,
Yes.
Representative Lanford, yes. Representative Myers.
She had to go.
Linda with us. I would like to hold the vote open and see if we can have Linda pop back in for a vote.
Okay. Representative Townsend,
Yes.
Representative Yakavoni,
Yes.
Representative Toll.
Yes. And is Linda in the Commerce Committee, Teresa?
She had her very last doctor's appointment today.
Okay, we can hold this vote open until noon. And then before we close it, I do know that the speaker is willing to introduce this bill today. And so if we can put it on introduction today, we can move it more quickly. So we do need to have this bill to the clerk's office before the start of the House time, which I believe is at 1:30 today.
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock. So we
2 o'clock.
should have it there by 1:30 at the latest. So Diane,
Yeah,
we-
so Madam Chair, I'll work with Teresa on getting, or, moving the clean copy, and I'm assuming that the reporter of this bill is Representative Conquest?
yes, it is. Thank you. And Susanna Davis, we want to thank you. You really helped shepherd this bill through, and as you can see, appropriations doesn't often do a bill with so much policy in it. But with the help of the administration putting this proposal forward, and with the initial help of the agriculture, the House and Senate Agriculture Committees, we were able to do this in a pretty short period of time. And really thank you for your work and your interest and your advocacy for all Vermonters.
Tremendous pleasure. And I hope that you all recognize how important it is what you've just done. Through this action, Vermont is leading in the nation, and that's big. And you should all be very pleased with that. So thank you all for the hard work.
Thank you. And Mike, thank you. I realize you were working crazy hours yesterday, and to tuck this in, we appreciate your always good work.
You're welcome.
And thorough. So thank you. And Nolan, thank you for JFO. We have such a good team between Legislative Council and JFO to support our work. Okay, so we are now going to move on because we have a lot to do. At 11:15, we have Betsy Ann Rass coming in. There's some language that we need to include in the budget regarding the legislature having the ability to work off campus when you come back in January. And so that needs to go in the budget so that that capability and planning for spaces can happen. And there's also some other language being worked on that would allow for the capacity of spaces to be used on the within the Capitol complex that would be large enough for committees to meet. And so in order to move those pieces forward so you all can come back and do this important work in January, we need to make sure you can work off campus and with complex in other areas that would provide for social distancing and safety, and that those areas can get set up with video equipment, video equipment. I must be out of the 1970s with the correct technology so that your committee's meetings can be heard and recorded and accessed by others. So that is at 11:15. Then we'll take a quick break for lunch and you'll nourish yourselves. And then we're going to fly through a lot of work that we've all been working on. Really, just a tremendous amount of effort from all of you. I would like to quickly go to your report. And in your web report, I just want to make sure we're clear so that Maria can be moving as quickly as she can, working on the final copy of the budget. If you go to the web report to B209, Maida, we had left open the state police, and we have not taken a position on the mental health clinicians. Is that ready to go, Mary and Maida, the mental health clinicians?
We did receive language from healthcare
proposed language with regard to that to include. I don't know where Mary disappeared to. She's our mental health
We're going to
person.
come back to that when Mary's here. I didn't see that she had left the screen. We're almost 11:15. I have 3 minutes, so there are a few things that we can tuck away. Kimberly, can you turn to B317 along with the other members? And there were 2 pieces of DCF that were left open regarding family services. Was this a Woodside piece within that family services? Because I don't think we have time to hit Woodside quickly here.
Right, I think you meant B318, Kitty. Are you talking about the language?
No, I'm in the numbers.
Okay.
That's
Anything to do with B317 and B327 gets us into Woodside, and they're best considered as a package, those 2 parts.
We're going to hold off on that then because that's a bigger piece. And then the remaining pieces all depend on where we end up with money. And so whatever we decide on our final list with money will determine if we close out Forest and Parks, State Board of Education, and there's one other piece that we're going to have to close out, which has to do with
Criminal Justice Training Council.
That's still open?
Yes, because we have a little piece of money on the list for it.
You're right, 42,000. Okay,
Yeah,
Criminal Justice
42,435.
Training Council, and also there was a small piece for the in Commerce recommended funding the 50,000 for the Center for Rural Studies. All right, so those are all when we make those final decisions with a larger list of money. Kimberly, after we do the 11:15 language with, I think it's Betsy Ann who is joining us now at 11:15. We will go back to DCF and close out and determine if we should close out the Woodside pieces. Thank you. Betsy Ann, thank you. So I mentioned to the committee there was some language that is going to be needed in order for the legislature to prepare for January, to prepare to be off campus, and also to prepare for meeting in other spaces within the Capitol complex. Are you addressing both pieces of language or just one of them?
I am just addressing, hello everybody, Betsy Ann Rouse, Legislative Council. I'm just addressing the chambers convening and holding sessions. And then Rebecca Wasserman is addressing a separate issue regarding committee space and state space generally.
Okay, so yours will be focused on if we're not in the State House, having the ability to meet outside the State House.
Correct, yes.
Perfect. Teresa, do we have this language we can pop up?
Here you go.
Thank you very much. So I'll just give some background. When it comes to the General Assembly and its chambers holding sessions, there are a few provisions of law that are at play. The first is constitutional. Each of the chambers has the constitutional authority to regulate its own procedure. Another provision of the Constitution is set forth in Chapter 2, Section 6, which requires the 2 chambers to agree to adjourn to different places. In addition, we've got statute. There's a provision of law in 2 VSA Section 1 that provides that the General Assembly shall hold its sessions at the State House. So we have to keep all of these provisions of law in mind when the General Assembly is considering meeting outside the State House next year for the 21-22 biennium, with the overall concern being that right now it does not appear that it would be safe for both chambers to be meeting in person with the State House. And so this draft that is draft 5.2 would address an alternate location for convening and organizing. And when I say that, I'm meaning day one, getting all the new members there, where the Secretary of State will convene the House and the Lieutenant Governor will convene the Senate. And then thereafter holding sessions generally. So where you meet after that, after you get sworn in on your first day. And there's another issue just to be aware of is just, this really is in regard to the General Assembly regulating its own procedure. So while this language we'll get to it in a second is notwithstanding that 2 VSA 1 section that says that the sessions of the General Assembly are held at the State House, and this would be in a bill that would be submitted to the governor. The big picture is that this is the General Assembly regulating its own procedure so you can perform your constitutional legislative function. So it's really, this language is designed to get you there on day one, be able to get sworn in as new members, and then making clear that you're able to meet outside the State House. So it starts out with some findings and purpose and intent in section 1A, providing the findings is that the General Assembly would be finding that both chambers convening, organizing, and holding sessions of the next biennium in person at the State House in Montpelier conflicts with health precautions that are necessary to mitigate the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Subsection B describes that it's the purpose of this act to provide an alternate means of convening, organizing, and holding sessions of the 21-22 biennium in order to protect the public health, safety, and welfare during the pandemic, while also maintaining the ability of the legislative branch to perform its constitutional legislative duties. And then subsection C is providing the intent. So first, by this act, the General Assembly would be intending to establish in law the alternate means of convening, organizing, and holding session for each chamber next biennium. But we'll see further on in this bill that while this bill would set out the Plan A, specify what those locations will be for day one, after we leave here, after you finally adjourn sine die this biennium, we hope Plan A is going to be workable, but we just won't know for sure. What if something else could happen with the Plan A that this bill sets out? And so this bill, pursuant to JLMC request, Joint Legislative Management Committee request, sets out a Plan B just in case something happens to that Plan A location for convening and organizing both chambers. In case that Plan A location, if there's a flood or somehow that building would also risk public health, this this piece of legislation would provide a Plan B, and it grants that Plan B authority to the JLMC according to a two-step vote to acknowledge the constitutional authority of both chambers to regulate their procedure, but also both chambers to agree to adjourning to a different location. So this language on line 6 here on page 2 is saying, however, in acknowledgement that the General Assembly in 2020 cannot know what effects COVID-19 pandemic or other factors may have on the intended alternate of convening and organizing the Plan A, after that alternate is enacted into law by this piece of legislation, this act also provides the legislative branch with the flexibility it needs to provide for a subsequent substitute alternate means of convening and organizing the 21 biennium, pursuant to the authority this act grants to JLMC and its members from each chamber in order for the legislative branch to maintain constitutional control over its legislative procedure. What we're getting at here is that ordinarily to exercise legislative lawmaking authority, you have to do it as a whole branch, both full chambers. Here, the Plan B authority would be granted to the JLMC, but because I view this not so much, really not lawmaking authority, but really regulating your own legislative procedure, which is an issue within your own constitutional control. I just want to put that in the record, and that's the reason why there is this delegation of authority to a subset of the General Assembly, the JLMC, because otherwise the General Assembly can't maintain control of its legislative procedure after you finally adjourn and something happens with the Plan A location that this bill specifies. Now I'll get to that, what that Plan A location is proposed to be in the Section 2. So it starts out by saying, notwithstanding specifically the provisions of 2 VSA Section 1 that require the sessions of the General Assembly to be held in the State House in Montpelier for the 21-22 biennium at the top of page 3. The proposal is that the House shall convene and organize, that's the day 1, and may thereafter hold sessions at the Barry Auditorium or remotely or both. So that's making clear that the proposal is to have the House's Plan A be a combination, a potential combination of Barry Auditorium and remote. And it says the Senate shall convene and organize and may thereafter hold sessions in a location or manner that it determines. Because this bill would be starting out in the House, as I understand it, the proposal is to not try to speak for the Senate, allow the Senate to make its own decision about what its Plan A authority would be. So the idea would be that once the budget gets to the Senate would fill in what its Plan A location is, and it would fill in what that location or manner is on lines 3 and 4. For example, it could be the same as the House, Barry Auditorium and remote, or maybe somewhere other location. It's for the Senate to decide. And then the language goes on to say, in addition, after convening and organizing, the day 1 activities, getting you there sworn in as members, the chambers may hold sessions as they may by rule, joint rule, or resolution provide. Just ensuring, I mean, this is the 2 chambers at the beginning of the 21 biennium determining that perhaps, you know, maybe the House wants to move somewhere other than the Barry Auditorium, or the Senate wants to go somewhere else. So just ensuring that there's that flexibility built in, that after day 1, you could meet and hold sessions elsewhere. On page 3, so that was the Plan A. The Plan A for the House, Barry Auditorium, Senate to be determined, ensuring that thereafter, after day 1, you can also do meet in other locations as you agree. But subsection B here on line 7, page 3, discusses the Plan B, just the back, the potential Plan B in case the Barry Auditorium, for example, doesn't work out. Something happens with the Barry Auditorium that it's no longer safe to use that for Plan A. So this language says, notwithstanding the provisions of subsection A, if a majority of a chamber's members of JLMC subsequently determines that the alternate means of convening and organizing the chamber on day 1, described in A1 or 2, will jeopardize the public health, safety, or welfare, a majority of that chamber's members of the JLMC may vote to require that chamber of the 21-22 biennium to instead convene and organize in a substitute location or manner. And if that substitute location or manner is thereafter approved by JLMC, that chamber of the 21-22 biennium shall instead convene and organize in that substitute location or manner. And in this case, JLMC would have to notify as soon as practicable Secretary of State, Lieutenant Governor, and members-elect. So it's a 2-step process there for that Plan B authority, which we hope wouldn't need to be used, but it's a 2-step process to acknowledge the constitutional provisions that each chamber should have control over its own procedure, but also that the chambers, by Chapter 2, Section 6 of Vermont Constitution, have to agree to adjourn to different places. So that's why that 2-step process is built in. And that Plan B, again, would only be exercised if there would be a jeopardy to the public in having the chamber convene at the Plan A location. That is it.
Hello?
I'm sitting here talking to myself. No one told me. As you can see my face either, both were off. I apologize. Thank you, Betsy Ann. And so this is, there's a two-step plan with Plan B only needing to go into effect if Plan A, if there's a reason why we cannot continue with Plan A because of safety, et cetera.
Correct.
And this simply allows the legislature to meet outside of the State House, where Betsy Ann articulately went over all of I think there's 3 places in statute that requires us to be at the location of the State House. Dave? A question, Dave?
Yes, yes. Did I read the document right? I don't have it in front of me. Could we just put it back up briefly and go to the top of it, please? Is that possible, Teresa?
Yep, it just takes a second. There you go, Dave. We'll go to the
Yep,
top.
thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to get and slow down. Yeah, if you could go down a little bit. It mentions Barry. I'm going to try to let me tell you my question without citing it on the document because I just can't follow it right now. Would it satisfy the constitutional requirements if the joint legislative management committee, we can't go to Barry, we're not going to go to any other alternative, we're going to have the first day of the session remotely on Zoom? Would they have the authority to do that?
Yes, I read that they do. That Barry Auditorium, thank you, Teresa, that reference is at the top. And then, so that's the Plan A for the House. And then if you scroll down to that Plan B authority in subsection B, it provides that first the chamber has to approve, it says, convene and organize in a substitute location or manner. So that manner was added in there to confirm, it's part to help confirm that it might not be a physical location. It might be meeting remotely, alone, solely.
Yep. And as I read this, the first day of the convening, the swearing in, et cetera, that could be in person at the Barry Auditorium or somewhere else. And then the remainder of the session could be remote via methods like Zoom, et cetera.
That is correct.
So there's sufficient latitude. Yeah, okay.
In the Barry
Thank you. I
Auditorium.
just wanted to make sure.
Yes, thanks.
Are there any other questions
Okay.
for Betsy Ann? Thank you, Dave. Any other questions? Teresa, can I have a full screen, please, of people? Thank you. Are we ready to take a position on this language? Okay, Peter has asked that we move it. If there's no other discussion, those of you that support this language to be included in the budget, raise your hand. And those that are opposed, a verbal no, please. Thank you. We will include this in our language. And Maria, are you on? Is Maria on with us? Teresa, you make sure Maria has this language, correct?
I will make sure she has it. Yes.
Okay, the next language that I would like to do is the treasurer's language that she talked about yesterday that allows the change to October 30th. It just extends the date, and I'd like to move there next. Maida, do you have a question?
Well, I did. There was reference made earlier that Becky Wasserman had a piece that related to our meetings.
Yes, that has to do with legislative space, and that's scheduled for this afternoon.
Ah, got it. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Betsy Ann.
Thank you. I'm gonna go. See ya.
Let's go to the next piece of language that the treasurer brought forth yesterday. And she needed an extension. This has happened before. This is, let's see, we're just waiting for it to come up.
Hang on just a second. Let me just get it because it's an email. So I had to make sure I had it.
And while you're looking for that, Chip, is there any other language referring to the judicial masters that you want to include, or was that with the reversion language all good with you? with the bill we,
I'm trying to remember where I have left that. So
we'll talk.
I need to check in with Maria, I think.
Okay, I've taken off the reversion language because that's included in the bill. It's just the judicial masters. If you need it, that's on my list still.
Yes, thank you for reminding me.
Okay, so this is what the treasurer brought forth to us yesterday. It is simply a date change from the September date to an October 30th date for the Capital Debt Affordability Advisory Committee shall submit to the governor and the General Assembly and the committee's estimate of the net state tax supported debt, which prudently may be authorized for the next fiscal year. Are there questions for the committee? And if there were, I would hope that you would ask them yesterday of the treasurer. It's simply pushing the date out, which we have before. Are we ready to take a position on this language because we discussed it yesterday? Teresa, can I have a full screen, please?
Recommend we approve it.
Thank you, Peter. There's a recommendation on the table. If you support it, please raise your hand. And if you're opposed, a verbal no, please. Okay, and Teresa, will you make sure that Maria gets that language as well?
I will.
Another piece of language, if we approve any additional money for the grant writer and move it to the base of VHCB, which will deal with the money later, I want to do language now. We have a piece of language that identifies the will of this committee, and we had talked about this. I can't remember if it was this week or last week because the days have all blended. Teresa, do you have that language as well?
Which one are you talking about?
The grant writer.
Grant writer.
The money that we're removing the base into VHCB. It was in emails that we were exchanging today. And you said, and you mentioned that we had put in money, and I said, yes, but we'll do the money separately.
Oh, yeah, but I don't have the language.
You don't have the language.
I was told it was already in the budget.
Is it already in the, will you just send a question to Maria? I'd asked if we needed to have language there. So let's move now to the joint, the end of session construct. Once we leave, if federal money comes in after we leave, we need to have some kind of construct in order to grant out or to move out those federal dollars, unless we want to call the legislature all back in. So the thought is that we would get the priorities of the committees of jurisdiction, legislators will be weighing in, and it would guide the Joint Fiscal Committee in directions to send out any additional federal aid that had to be addressed while we were away. And so we have, I asked the Joint Fiscal Office to help with some language that would enable the Joint Fiscal Committee to work off the House and Senate priorities and address that funding if any federal dollars come in. Do we have that one, Teresa?
I'm sorry, I'm doing a lot of emails. What did you ask for?
The end of the construct for the Joint Fiscal Committee, if money comes in after we have adjourned.
I do not have that.
Oh, I thought Steve had that. Maybe, I know I've read it. So I thought it went to you as well. Do you have any other language then, Teresa, instead of me asking what you have?
Let me see here. Can I send you, because some of these I'm not clear. I'm going to send you this one and you tell me whether this one is ready.
And then there's one that addresses the
housing registry from House General. Did you want to?
That's CRF, so I want to hold that for CRF. Mary, you have pay act? Okay, I thought we already did that. Is there a change?
No.
Oh, okay.
We did, but I was in GovOps this morning and they agreed to the language on a vote of 8-2, and there were no changes. I just wanted to
Thank you.
close that loop.
Thank you for that update. Does anybody else have any language? Chip, do you have the number of school day language?
Nope, haven't gotten that yet. I think most of that language, but they're working on some other, one other particular issue, and I think they're going to send all the language together, but they didn't expect they would have that till this afternoon.
Okay. Maida?
Now that Mary's back, I don't know if you want to pose the question again with regard to the mental health clinician language.
Yes, Mary, are you ready to bring that forward?
No. Sorry.
No? When will that be ready? Oh, that.
So we have advice from the healthcare committee that Maida and I have both seen. I'm just trying to track down and make sure that we've solved the questions of who's responsible for paying for this program in the out years. And there's still kind of a conversation going on about how to make sure this works in the out years. So rather than explaining it to the committee and having that conversation, let me just complete it and get back to you.
Okay. So Teresa, if you could ask Steve and Maria, the three pieces that I know are out there and are done are the JFC construct for after the legislature leaves is one. The financial reconciliation in A102.1 on the very first page. We just wanted that review to include some sort of final technical review or reconciliation. And the other piece that they were working on was JFC A102.1, and Steve had some, CRF, there's some, he's also working on other CRF language that has to do with if there's any entity that wasn't able to get their CRF dollars out, how we can bring those back in and redistribute them when we are out of session. And so that is another piece of language. Okay, and then if you could ask them about the grant writer, if grant writer language is needed. I thought we had that. Chip will bring back school days this afternoon, and Mary will bring back the mental health clinicians, and we will be at a close with language. I would like to, okay, I'd like to, if you take out your language package, if you turn to page 9, the only thing that's left open on page 9 is if we need grant writer language on page 9. On page 17, we had left open for the Capitol Police Officer need, and that's section E100. And Maida, you've weighed in on the Capitol Police Officer need that GovOps is not recommending.
No, that would be Diane, who has the Capitol Police.
Thank you, Diane. Is that accurate?
Yep, that's accurate. Yesterday we agreed with government ops, or at least I thought we agreed with government ops recommendation, and the Joint Legislative Management Committee will be looking at the both of those items in the Capitol Police's budget.
And since we did agree with that, we can close out E100 because that was open for that reason.
Was it? Okay.
Or I still had it open. And then if we turn to page 31, Kimberly, this is where the child care provider stabilization grants are. We agreed to the dollars yesterday and the construct, but we didn't go back and address the language.
Right. Thanks, Kitty. Right. So if people look at the bottom of page 31 in language, there are two pieces that travel in tandem. One is E318, which is the stabilization grants, and the other is E318.1, which is the child care financial assistance program. And yesterday, under the web report B318, we closed out the section that dealt with the Child Care Financial Assistance Program Year 2. That is the language that is captured in E318.1. So my recommendation that would be to align the language with the numbers that we approved yesterday. And the explanation is there is that swap out in terms of $2 million of that amount, how it's funded.
Any questions for Kimberly on those two pieces of language? We made the decisions yesterday. This is the language that aligns with those decisions. If you accept those two pieces of language, would you raise your hand? And if you're opposed, if I could have a verbal no, please. Thank you, Kimberly. And the next piece of language that we have left open is on page 33, which has to do with IDAs and has to do with micro businesses. The one piece that needs to be changed on E323 is subject to available appropriations. And if we appropriate, then we'll be able to go back and close out 323. And the micro business piece is the same thing, subject to available appropriations. And then it was this waterfall language. And so depending on our actions this afternoon, or if we get moving, no, we only have 20 minutes this afternoon, we can go back and close out those two pieces with IDAs and micro businesses. And that is it for language. So you know the pieces that are hanging out there, and there's nothing else that I'm aware of for language that we're going to have to address. And I just want to quickly look through the web report. So we cannot close out the state police because we're waiting. Oh, Dave, go ahead. Sorry.
Yes, yep. No, that's okay. Don't be sorry. I guess it goes somewhere else. Let me just see. For instance, I received some proposed language for house healthcare on healthcare disparities.
That's CRF money.
Spending?
That's CRF. That's going to be a whole different section. Yep, we're going to move to CRF.
Thank you. I don't have to worry about.
Nope, any CRF.
Okay. Thank you, Kitty.
All together.
Sorry.
So public safety, B2.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dave. 209 is open. Kimberly, let's move to the Woodside pieces. I think this would be a good time to finish up these pieces. In your web report, it's on page 317.
Actually,
and
I'm sorry.
327.
Right, so the page number for those of us who have the mailed version from Teresa would be at the bottom of page 35. You're going to see, excuse me, the title, the header for B317, Department of Children and Families, Family Services. The actual numbers, though, you'll have to flip the page, and that's where the numbers start on the following page. So page 36, the very, very top of page 36. So the two open sections in the DCF budget are B317 and B327, and both involve Woodside. And they are the last two because there is nothing easy about Woodside. It involves some of our most vulnerable Vermonters and their distressed families, as well as state employees who are working under circumstances that are tremendously demanding. And as we all know, there have been ongoing challenges around how to handle justice-involved youth deemed in need of a physically secure location and currently served at Woodside by state employees. And you might recall that there was language, it was in the Q1, and it stated that it's the intent of the General Assembly that Woodside remain open until its closure is authorized by the appropriate committees upon a plan to identify and fund alternative placements. And a plan was due from DCF on August 18th. Fast forward, and much has occurred, including 3 destabilizing moves in a short period of time. And in this August 18th report, which we all received, as did some other committees, a plan for interim options are outlined, and a more detailed and a longer term proposal has yet to be released. October 1st was the Woodside closure date in the August report that DCF recently submitted. However, there are currently no youth at Woodside, and it's the stated position of the DCF commissioner that no more youth will be admitted as there are continuing active issues, continuing litigation. Fortunately, on this committee and on the Human Services Committee, there are members who also sit on the Joint Legislative Justice Oversight Committee, and I've attended, when we could attend in person, some of these justice oversight meetings where Woodside was discussed. And it's fair to say, I think, that the tension was palpable each and every time. And as we touched upon yesterday, we are budget writers in this committee, but may sometimes find ourselves making policy choices when circumstances demand. And in my view, this is not one of those times, given the complex history and the ongoing litigation around Woodside, and now the proposed reduction in force that was brought forward yesterday. My preference is that we defer to the Policy Committee of Jurisdiction, Human Services. Their vote yesterday was to follow and fund the administration's recommendation and to close Woodside by a vote of 10-0-1. And in terms of the budget implications, were we to do that, it involves two sections that are working in tandem, kind of like the pieces that we looked at yesterday. Those two sections again are the B317, the Family Services, and B327 Woodside. And I want to start with B317. So if I start, I think I'll start with a broad overview and do some non-Woodside details and then some Woodside details. And then finally, that last part, when we get into the Woodside details, I'm happy to report that we have one of Maria's charts that I think will pull this together nicely. So you will see if you're in B317 that there's an increase of about 4 million in federal funds. And this reflects that TANF 5-year plan net neutral move that we discussed yesterday. So 3,500,000 went down from the general fund to federal funds. And that was along with the Title IV FMAP that's tied to kids who are in FSD custody. That's, you know, the foster care permanency payments. That's not Woodside. And that allows for a one-time reduction in general funds and an up of about 713,000 in federal funds. Some of those are Woodside pieces, and then there's the familiar 5% internal service fund downs that offset some of these increases. In the global commitment down, you're going to see it's nearly 2 million. And when I'm using these numbers, I mean the difference between January and where we are now. Reflects the Woodside residential placement reversions of nearly 3,200,000 because CMS no longer pays for room and board, as well as some of the internal service reductions. And then this is offset by, if you cast your minds back to January, we went through, there were a whole bunch of caseload shifts that we saw in more detail, and that's essentially a truing up of those. You're going to see a general fund decrease there of around 5,300,000, and that reflects that 3,500,000 TANF, ISF, and some Woodside reversions, as well as that one-time Title IV FMAP that freed up that 700 plus in general funds. There's also an increase of about 3 million under grants, and that goes back to CMS saying no use of the global commitment funds for room and board. Plus there's a barge piece in there and some caseload true-ups. And touching upon a few of the non-Woodside details, and here I got these from the ups and downs. If you recall, there was a repurposed position that we saw in January for the Raise the Age initiative. That remains. That's an up of about 100,000 in personal service in the general funds. And I inquired that where does that stand? I'm told recruitment is underway. That was maybe a week ago. They were in their second round of interviews. And this is the Juvenile Justice Director of Operations position. And there's also an increase of about 117,000 for the balanced and restorative justice or barge contract. And I know both those pieces are of interest to folks. You might also recall from January that there was a pilot with the Northwestern Counseling Support Services. This is in St. Albans, and that was sought to try to reduce reliance on residential care, but that did not produce the hoped for results, and that was discontinued. And that accounts for about a down of $640,000 in the Medicaid Global Commitment Funds. And I think that this might be a good place, Maria, if you're on, to go ahead and put up that chart now. What you're, is Maria, I'm sorry, Teresa.
Maria's not on, it's just me. And I'm
okay.
sorry, I've been working on
All right.
things, but the chart, I remember the chart. I think
Here, I can.
Give me a second.
There's one that is modified that had, it has two different boxes in it.
You want to send me the one that you want up so that we don't get confused?
Okay.
Can I go to the ladies' room?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to, I'm having trouble finding that. I thought Maria would be here. Let's see.
I can ask her. So it's the latest chart on Woodside.
It's the latest chart, right? And it has two pieces. There's two different versions, and I want the latest one that shows both boxes.
So while Kimberly is waiting to put the chart up on Woodside so we can address those two areas, I received a text that there may be an issue with the bill that we just passed. And so I'm going to hold it for a bit to have Ledge Council determine if there is a bit of an issue or if it's just a disagreement between parties. So we'll just hold that. We're holding that bill, and it may be coming back to us for a revision.
Kitty?
Yes?
You mean the equity bill?
The equity bill, the one we just passed. Yep. The language to make sure that we transfer funds correctly if they've been appropriated. We just have to check that language and the reversion back of them. And it has to do with that piece. So not within the meat of our bill, not within the construct, but we just have to make sure that a couple groups agree that the way we're transferring and reverting back actually can work. So Kimberly, can you tell us what you were going to show us, do you think?
Sure. Yeah, my apologies. I really thought that Maria would have this up. So the upshot is actually one of the helpful places. If I don't know if any of you have that report, but when you go to B327, there are various ups and downs that are going to get you to a total of $4,604,412. And that was when the plan was conceived, and that's from the governor's restatement. Then what you'll see when you have the August report that came out is that same figure. So the 4,604,412 is reconfigured. That reconfiguration has basically four parts. The first part is you'll see an 1,470,029, and that is for continued operations at Woodside for the first quarter of this fiscal year. So that's July through September 30th, and that comports with that closure date of October 1. The second you're going to see, and this is again on our journey to that number of 4.6 million, you're going to see $1,526,704. And that is put in as an estimate of the cost for various contractual agreements to serve Woodside youth. As we know, there are any number of in-state and out-of-state residential treatment programs for Vermont youth, and there's also in that August report an agreement with the Lamoille County Sheriff's Department for a short-term secure supervision on weekends or after hours, should that be needed. All of those figures are rolled up into that 1,526,704. If you keep moving to get to that $4 million figure, you'll also see one-time cost for a new secure location. And this gets to the fact that DCF is exploring trying to put online, it would probably be 12 months from now, a 5-bed secure, that's physically secure, residential location in Vermont. And the proposals that would be run by a private entity, and that accounts for that figure there. You'll also see that there is also a 1.2 million, 1,200,000, that is some of the costs that are going into renovations around this new secure location. And then there's also some miscellaneous contracting grants, and all of these are captured in getting us to the 4,604,412 number. So if you, and the box that I was hoping that everyone could look at, that you would be able to contrast, basically captures B327. And what that will show you is adding general funds to maintain operations, and that's a big number. That's a 5 million and plus number. There's an interdepartmental transfer to maintain operations. That's close to 100,000. You'll see there's a removal of a Woodside phase down number. That's a down of 1.2. The operation cost, there's an up of 715. You have an internal service in there. And then there was a mothballing Woodside funds. Those are backed out. Those are close to 250. And that gets you to the 4.6. So, and I, again, apologize that you don't have this in front of you and you're having my less than elegant walk through it.
Representative Jessie, Maria just sent us a chart.
Oh, good. Okay.
Second.
And I think you've walked through it, Kimberly, so just hit the highlights of it. I don't think, I think followed with,
Right. I think the highlight is essentially that there's put in place elements of this plan that are called an interim plan. The fact of the matter is this is essentially the current plan, because there will be no more youth. There are no more youth in Woodside. And as I mentioned before, the commissioner has stated that there will not be more youth in Woodside. And so these numbers that we are looking at in the top part of the chart are the numbers. Actually, this is the older version, but that's okay. This is the number that we would look at, and it is not different than the numbers that are captured in B317 and 327 put together.
any questions for Kimberly on the Woodside piece? And could you tell us the vote out of the Committee of Jurisdiction again, Kimberly?
The vote was 10-0-1.
And Kimberly, what is your recommendation?
My recommendation is that we accept the recommendation of the Committee on Human Services and that we approve these budgets that align with that decision.
Mary?
Thank you. I can't raise my hand. I accept the recommendation. I understand why it is the way it is. I just want to note that in a more perfect world, we would have the proposal for how we move forward with managing this population of youth more neatly understood and wrapped up before we moved from one way of doing it to another way of doing it. And so that gives me some pause, but we don't live in a perfect world, and I appreciate that we've got to move forward. We can't wait for that perfect world. But we're going to have to pay attention to Woodside a lot going forward, or to the population served by Woodside going forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary. Any other questions or comments for Kimberly or regarding Woodside? Kimberly has put a proposal on the table to accept the proposal from the House Human Services Committee for the construct to close Woodside. And you did a fine job outlining the issues and the flow of money. And I have to tell you, it was an excellent presentation. If there's no other questions or concerns at this time, I would ask those that support the recommendation from the Committee of Jurisdiction, please raise your hand. And those of you that oppose, a verbal no, please. Thank you, Kimberly. And that closes out those two sections, 317 and 327. Thank you. There's only 4 other pieces open, and this will all determine on our work this afternoon, our decision on the $24,000 for the State Board of Education in B5111, and Forest Parks, the $71,000 that is on a list that we're carrying in B705. B800 had the additional, had the $50,000 for the Vermont study for the Vermont Rural Studies. And Mary, we're leaving corrections open because we have the out-of-state beds money that's being carried, and that's B339. And so what I would like to do is break for lunch, and we will come back at, Teresa has us coming back at, let me see,
1:15.
At 1:15, and at 1:15, when is the next? Oh, that's an old agenda. No wonder it wasn't making any sense to me, Teresa.
Yeah, I sent you a new one.
Yeah, I have it right here. I apologize. So we'll come back at 1:15, and there's a couple of things I think that we can get done if there's language, but at 1:30, we're going to hear from the Transportation Committee. At 2 o'clock, we're going to hear from Legislative Council on legislative space. My question is to you, so that we don't come back, we don't have to work as late. Are you willing to come back at 1 o'clock? Because if we came back at 1 o'clock, Maria has finalized a list that shows all of our decisions and shows the plus or minus where we are on the bottom line. Are you willing to come back at 1 o'clock just to have that list in front of you, so that we can get that off the table to make decisions after the transportation and after that other piece of language? 1 o'clock, does that work for everybody?
Kitty?
Peter?
I'm in House Education at 12:30 and will be there until at worst 2 o'clock. I will get out of there as soon as I can.
Okay, we'll get the chart to you, Peter.
Thank you.
I may be interested too.
Is anybody else, Mary, do I have a majority that can come in?
Oh,
So 1 o'clock.
Peter,
Can I see hands for 1 o'clock? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I make 6. Chip's going to be gone. Dave, I can't see you. Chip, where are you going to be?
I was going to go to House Ed too. I'm not sure it's essential that I'm there. They'll tell me what happens. So if needed.
I'll let you know, Chip. I think it's more higher ed than anything else. And so I'll let you know.
Okay, there was going to be some CRF funding discussions.
I'll be here,
Oh,
Kitty.
That's right.
Thank you, Dave.
we're good.
Mary?
I'll find out. I'll probably be able to stay.
Okay. Mary?
I hesitate to say this, but do you want to do the mental health clinician language right now. I've got it okay for it. Or do you want to do that
I
later?
think we need to break. I think we need to break and we'll do it when we come back. Thank you. Thank you. All right, see you all at 1 o'clock. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Going offline.